Chapter 291, Thousand Illusions. One of the 10 legendary cauldrons from the stories, the ancient cauldron is actually the cauldron of the heavenly dragons. Lin Feng's voice was echoing through the atmosphere. People's hearts started to violently pound. Legendary cauldrons were extremely precious. Even though they didn't know what the true name Heavenly Dragon of the Nine Skies or exactly what it meant, considering the name, they could imagine its price. It seemed to be a priceless treasure from ancient times. The Dream Pavilion doesn't care about violating the rules. They have come to steal a treasure. The crowd had no doubts when it came to Lin Feng's words. On that day, many people had seen Lin Feng come out of the Dream Pavilion with his legendary cauldron. But surprisingly, at that moment, the Dream Pavilion surprisingly wanted to have it back. Obviously, that ancient cauldron was priceless. Otherwise, the Dream Pavilion wouldn't care. The crowd was filled with excitement. They wished they could have obtained such an item. Mr. Hui glanced at Lin Feng. Fire was burning in his eyes. He was an alchemist, he concocted pills. He had already heard about these legendary cauldrons, once or twice. These cauldrons all had a common point: they could be used by alchemists to concoct powerful pills and were all priceless. When using an ordinary cauldron, one could only concoct Shen-level pills of lower quality, while when using the cauldron of the heavenly dragons, one could concoct Shen-level pills of medium quality or above. Even though it was only a slight improvement in quality, it still made a huge difference. It was the difference between day and night. For example, Shen-level pills of lower quality could be used by cultivators between the 1st and the 3rd Shen-Chi layer, while Shen-level pills of medium quality could be used by cultivators between the 4th and 6th Shen-Chi layer. That was a 3-layer difference, therefore, it was a huge difference. Ha ha ha. Emo Lan was laughing demonically. The more he used his evil skill, the more evil and sinister he became. He didn't look like a human being anymore. He realized that he was interested in the cauldron of the heavenly dragons as well. He was as interested in the cauldron as he was in killing Lin Feng. Bing He Tang was astonished as well. If the Ice and Snow Mountain village could obtain such a treasure, how beneficial would it be? No, if I had such a treasure, would I even need to go back to the sect? Bing He Tang was secretly excited. If he had such a treasure and went back to the sect, the treasure wouldn't be his anymore, it would become the property of the Ice and Snow Mountain village. Besides, considering the strength of the Ice and Snow Mountain village, maybe they wouldn't be able to protect the cauldron. It would be too hard to protect it. Maybe when it came to such a heavy responsibility, it was best to leave Shuiyu and take the treasure with him. Everybody was already dreaming about getting the heavenly dragon cauldron. All the strong cultivators were wondering why they weren't the ones who bought the cauldron, even though they had never even thought about it. At that moment, Aunt Yun looked glum. Before arriving, she hadn't thought that Lin Feng would know about the heavenly dragon cauldron, which is why she had offered a high price in the beginning, but later on, whatever the price, Lin Feng kept refusing over and over again. Therefore, she had guessed that Lin Feng probably knew about the cauldron. Besides, she had threatened Lin Feng's life, but it hadn't been enough. Lin Feng had made the truth publicly known. That was a great loss for her. Even if she obtained the cauldron, she wouldn't necessarily be able to leave Shuiyu. Everybody would quickly know about the heavenly dragon cauldron. Everybody will know about the treasure if I obtain it, thought Aunt Yun. She was staring at Lin Feng and her face was filled with murder. You want to kill me? Lin Feng had a cold smile on his face and immediately said, Emo Lan, Bing Yi Tang, I know that you all want to kill me, but even if you kill me, have you thought about who would get the treasure? Lin Feng sounded cold and indifferent. Emo Lan and Bing Yi Tang remained silent. The Dream Pavilion was one of the 3 biggest marketplaces in Celestial River. They had such a large power and influence that the Condor Castle couldn't rival them. All the objects that appeared in their auction room were treasures, yet no one dared to try and steal the treasures. They certainly were extremely strong. However, if we kill the people of the Dream Pavilion first, we can solve our personal problems after, then we won't be bothered by a stronger third party. Wouldn't that be a better solution? Said Lin Feng. In the world, there were no definite enemies. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Even though Emo Lan and Bing He Tang wanted to kill him and Lin Feng also wanted to kill them, he knew that if they acted at the same time as the Dream Pavilion, he wouldn't have a single chance. Lin Feng was just trying to create tension between them, so that they would, at least, not collaborate to kill him. Lin Feng, Lan Jiao was looking at Lin Feng while unceasingly shaking her head. She hadn't thought that Aunt Yun and Lin Feng would fight each other to death. She wants to kill me, should I let her kill me without retaliation? Said Lin Feng sounding indifferent while looking at Lan Jiao, which made her speechless. Aunt Yun wanted to kill Lin Feng, what could Lin Feng do? He had no choice but to return his killing intent. When Bing Yi Tang heard Lin Feng, lights flashed in his eyes. Lin Feng was right. Even if they collaborated with Aunt Yun and killed Lin Feng, they were in Celestial River, they weren't at the Ice and Snow Mountain village. Even if they obtained the heavenly dragon cauldron, they wouldn't be able to leave with it as long as the Dream Pavilion wanted it. Ha ha ha. Emo Lan was laughing evilly. He then said, I will not join anyone. Old fool. Cursed Lin Feng. Emo Lan was really evil. He didn't wait for Bing Yi Tang, who wasn't as strong as him, to reply and had given his answer. If the two didn't help, Lin Feng and the people of the Dream Pavilion would fight. The other two would just sit and watch them fight and then attack the winner. Then, it didn't matter whether it was Lin Feng or the Dream Pavilion who won, they would inevitably be injured. However, even they didn't help. Lin Feng's goal was to get rid of the 2 cultivators of the 3rd Shen-Chi layer and then fight against the people of the Dream Pavilion. Aunt Yun, at that moment, was staring at Lin Feng. From the stories, he was not someone who would lie down and be killed easily, but could it really be that bad? Even though they had only a fraction of the power in Celestial River, they were still strong enough to kill Lin Feng. Since you want to die, I will help you achieve your aim, said Aunt Yun coldly. She then jumped off the palanquin. She was extremely quick. At the same time, the silhouettes of the 4 cultivators carrying the palanquin flickered. They all landed on her sides. They were releasing a deadly chi. Amongst these 4 people, who were women, none of them were mediocre cultivators, all of them had broken through to the first Qian Qi layer. The people of the Dream Pavilion are so strong. Lin Feng was stupefied. Aunt Yun was extremely powerful when compared to the other women. You 4 can kill him and then his ring with the Na stone, said Aunt Yun while pointing to Lin Feng. She sounded indifferent. Lin Feng had no power or influence in Celestial River, he couldn't just walk away with the precious treasure when there were stronger people present. That was why these 4 people were here to kill Lin Feng. I will handle these 2, said Aunt Yun while rolling up her sleeves. Her silhouette flickered and in a flash, she appeared in front of Mr. Hua and Meng Qing. Her long sleeves were fluttering in the wind. In a flash, an endless quantity of illusions appeared. It seemed like there was an endless quantity of clones. In a flash, Meng Qing and Mr. Hua's silhouettes had disappeared. Third Qian Qi layer. Emosan Lan and Bing He-Tang had lots of experience, they could, obviously, sense other people's strength. They could see that that woman had broken through to the third Qian Qi layer like them, however, she had immediately challenged Meng Qing and Mr. Hua, alone. Those 2 could rival Emosan Lan and Bing He-Tang in power. What a strong and aggressive woman. People's hearts were pounding. After that move, it seemed like she was the only person in the entire world. Aunt Yun's 1,000 illusion skill is becoming stronger and stronger, whispered Lan Zhao. She was lost though because she already had feelings for Lin Feng, but at that moment, Aunt Yun wanted to kill him. In the middle of a whistling hurricane, Meng Qing and Mr. Hua had recovered from the illusions. These 1,000 illusions didn't emit any sound but everybody could feel the terrifying power in the attack. A careless move and it was easy to get severely injured in the middle of such an attack, or even die in a pitiful manner. At that moment, the 4 women also attacked. Their sleeves were fluttering in the wind. Like illusions, in a flash, they surrounded Lin Feng. Lin Feng was unable to escape even if he grew wings. Boom! Coldness invaded the entire atmosphere. Lin Feng frowned and raised his head and looked at the 3 silhouettes fighting. It seemed like Meng Qing was furious. She wanted to leave the 1,000 illusions and join Lin Feng. Meng Qing, don't worry about me, shouted Lin Feng. It was clear to Lin Feng that Meng Qing was ready to do anything for him. Besides, he even knew that Meng Qing had a strange ability to increase her power several-fold when needed, but using it created an infinite coldness which invaded her body. He didn't want Meng Qing to use it. Lin Feng preferred to suffer alone. It's my turn. Lin Feng took a deep breath. 100 surplus souls emerged. Around his body was releasing a terrifying chi. Chapter 292, The Dragon Metamorphosis. A strange light flashed in these 4 women's eyes. Their sleeves fluttered in the wind while they all started to punch towards Lin Feng. Punches were moving towards Lin Feng from all 4 sides. These women had all broken through to the Qian Qi layer, even though they had just broken through to the first Qian Qi layer, their opponent was only a cultivator of the Ling Qi layer. Aunt Yun had assigned 4 people to kill Lin Feng because she wanted to make sure that Lin Feng would die. She didn't want to waste time and let more troubles arise. A soft and pliable pure chi was whistling in the atmosphere and moving straight towards Lin Feng. An ordinary cultivator of the Ling Qi layer wouldn't be able to withstand a single attack such as this. Hiss. Lin Feng's purple spirit transformed into a gigantic purple dragon. It was a dozen meters high. It curled up around Lin Feng's body and moved Lin Feng onto its head. In a flash, Lin Feng appeared a dozen meters high in the air looking down on everybody. What a monstrous spirit! When the crowd saw that gigantic purple dragon, they were astonished. However, they didn't know what kind of spirit it was exactly that Lin Feng had, but it looked extremely strong. At that moment, Lin Feng's eyes were slightly closed. He was, as before, releasing a terrifyingly powerful chi. His surplus souls were floating above his dragon spirit. Die! Shouted the 4 women on the ground. They jumped up in the air and threw themselves towards Lin Feng. Release! Said Lin Feng in a low voice. A terrifying chi invaded the entire atmosphere. The purple dragon started shaking violently and it raised its head high into the air. Hiss, the dragon was unleashing a dragon chant. Its 2 eyes, which looked enormous, became even scarier. At the same time, its body became even bigger, it became monstrously gigantic. That small dragon that was like a snake now transformed and looked like a terrifying purple dragon. Hiss, the dragon howled in fury. Its head rushed towards the 4 women with its huge mouth wide open. It wanted to swallow them. Animal! Furiously shouted Aunt Yun while looking at Lin Feng. She left Meng Qing and Mr. Hua and attempted to rush over to Lin Feng. She had thought that these 4 women, with their strength, would need only a few seconds to kill Lin Feng, but she hadn't thought that Lin Feng had other plans. Lin Feng was full of mysteries and surprises. Stay here, said Mr. Hua furiously. If she wanted to fight, they had to fight, and if she wanted to leave, she thought that she could leave as she pleased. Mr. Hua, old as he was, couldn't tolerate that. That was a huge humiliation. A firelight streaked through the sky towards Aunt Yun like a fireball. Aunt Yun was startled for a few seconds. She couldn't deal with Lin Feng. She abruptly turned around and saw the fireball move towards her at full speed. Boom! The fireballs exploded in the atmosphere. Immediately after, the atmosphere became extremely cold. Meng Qing had arrived as well. Crackling and explosion sounds were uninterruptedly spreading through the air. In a flash, it seemed like the atmosphere had gone from intense heat to freezing coldness. The fireballs were surrounded by ice. Ice and fire, when working together, increased in strength. Lin Feng was on the other side in the air. At that moment, he was on the enormous tail of the dragon. Besides, the gigantic purple dragon opened its colossal mouth and immediately swallowed one of the 4 women, and she was instantly eaten alive. One cultivator of the Xianxi layer had just died. At that moment, the dragon didn't look like a spirit anymore. It looked like a real terrifying dragon, as if it was alive. How could a spirit be alive? The crowd was astonished. The spirit was something innate and was a part of the soul. It played an important role in the path of cultivation. It could be used to enhance techniques or enlightenment during battles. When the cultivation level increased, the spirit became stronger as well. However, they believed the spirit was just a support for the cultivator and did not have life. They had never seen Lin Feng's spirit before, and it seemed like it had a life of its own. At that moment, Lin Feng was on the tail of the dragon and had his eyes closed. Besides, the pupils of the dragon were filled with endless coldness. If you want to kill me, just try it. People's hearts were pounding. They had the impression that their heads were exploding in shock. That voice had come from the mouth of the dragon. However, it was Lin Feng's voice. It's Lin Feng. That purple dragon is Lin Feng. The crowd was dumbstruck. They looked at these gigantic eyes, which looked expressionless and incredibly cold. These eyes were those of a human. Lin Feng could control his spirit and bring it to life. Phew. People in the crowd took a deep breath. How scary. Lin Feng had absolute control over his spirit. People in the crowd were not the ones who were astonished. Those few extremely strong cultivators of the Xianxi layer were all astonished. Lin Feng's abilities were very mysterious. Mo-san Lan's face was filled with evil intentions. What a great method. He definitely wanted that ability as well. Lin Feng was a priceless treasure to him. At that moment, the 3 women of the Xianxi layer managed to free themselves from the attacks of the purple dragon and landed onto the ground. They were breathing quickly and felt cold in their hearts. What a terrifying young man. They were not the only ones who thought that Lin Feng was terrifying. Everybody thought the same. So that's how it was. He had killed the 2 vice leaders of the Condor Castle organization without using his full strength. No wonder he didn't fear them and was determined to stay in Celestial River. However, Lin Feng hadn't expected so many people would keep attacking him one after the other when he was dealing with Condor Castle. First, it was the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, then the Dream Pavilion. They all wanted to kill him. Fortunately, Mr. Hua was there to help. The purple dragon was fixedly staring at the people down on the ground. When Lin Feng was at the Golden Z Mountain in MOU, the cultivators of the Z government used a purple energy. They could control their spirits and increase the strength of their spirit. This is what Lin Feng was using. He had obtained the memories of the cultivator of the Zhongqi layer and spent 6 months practicing in secret. He had learned how to use surplus souls and could now already make 100 surplus souls appear, which all contained the power of his soul. He was combining that power with the power of his spirit. Thus, when using these surplus souls and injecting them into his spirit, he could bring his spirit into reality and it would become monstrously strong. If he had only relied on the strength of a single soul and tried to control his spirit, his dragon would have been strong, but it wouldn't have been enough to defeat these 4 women of the Xianxi layer. Therefore, he had used all of his surplus souls to inject them into his spirit and increase its strength. His snake thus had even more power as well. That splendid method was called the Ode to the Spirit. Die, shouted Lin Feng coldly. Immediately after, the dragon rushed through the atmosphere with a whistling sound. The purple lake from before had been entirely swallowed by Lin Feng's snake spirit, and that purple lake turned out to be the blood of a Zoon-level dragon. Besides, there were the remnants of its willpower and determination in that blood. The gigantic dragon moved. It seemed like the entire world was under the pressure of that terrifying creature. Fear invaded the heart of these 3 female cultivators of the Xianxi layer. That gigantic snake definitely had the strength of a Xian-level beast. Besides, it was also extremely brutal, violent, and agile. Concerning the women, they were experts at creating illusions. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be very useful against Lin Feng's spirit. Exclamation point. Cursed the 3 women furiously. Their silhouettes flickered and many illusions appeared floating above the ground. The crowd was dazzled and felt they were hallucinating after seeing so many illusions. Fools! Shouted Lin Feng's furious voice, and his eyes were as cold as before. He was determined and tenacious. There wasn't the least bit of hesitation in his actions. Illusions? They probably didn't know that at this moment, Lin Feng's purple dragon spirit was filled with the power of several surplus souls. Lin Feng's eyes were closed and he was in fusion with the earth. He could see through the illusions clearly in his mind, therefore so could all of his surplus souls. Ah, 2 piercingly sharp shrieks emerged. A huge quantity of illusions vanished. 2 female cultivators of the Xianxi layer had just disappeared after being swallowed by the purple dragon. The arrogant female cultivator of the Qianqi layer who was standing in front of the dragon seemed absolutely tiny and insignificant, at least in comparison with the dragon. There was only one left. From the 4 female cultivators of the first Qianqi layer, only one was left. She was standing there looking at that gigantic creature and shaking. She had just seen her 3 sisters being swallowed by the spirit. How could she not be terrified? Her determination and willpower had already been crushed. The monstrous and gigantic spirit was coldly staring at her. She was getting more and more frightened with each second. Finally, she decided to give up and turned around to run. She didn't want to fight anymore. She wanted to escape. A cultivator of the Qianqi layer wasn't fighting anymore, she wanted to flee. Unfortunately, she didn't have the possibility of escaping. The gigantic dragon started moving as if in a frenzy. In a flash, he swallowed her body which immediately disappeared. With that, the 4 female cultivators of the Qianqi layer had all died. Boom! A violent and heavy wave of energy spread through the air. Antian moved away from Mr. Hua and Meng Qing. When she saw that the 4th female cultivators had disappeared, a horrible and evil expression appeared on her face. You killed them all. Her face was distorted with murderous intentions. She didn't look calm and indifferent anymore. Not only did I kill them but I will also kill everyone else from the Dream Pavilion, said the purple dragon sounding ice cold. When you came to kill me, you should have prepared for death. Chapter 293, Giving Up the Cauldron. Lin Feng was back on the head of the gigantic purple dragon and his eyes were closed as before. Besides, the purple dragon, on which Lin Feng was moving towards the people of the Dream Pavilion which made their heartbeats accelerate violently. How dare you? Said the woman who sounded enraged. She was extremely arrogant and at that moment, she was still acting very haughty and bossy. Why would I not dare? Said Lin Feng sounding ice cold. Mr. Hua, Meng Qing, Aunt Yun is for you. Alright, said Mr. Hua while slightly nodding. He was staring at Aunt Yun. How arrogant. She was even looking down on him, an old man at the same Qianqi layer. The purple dragon arrived in front of the people of the Dream Pavilion in a flash. At that moment, a silhouette blocked Lin Feng's way. It was Lan Zhao. Please, no, said Lan Zhao while shaking her head and hoping that Lin Feng would stop. Please, no, said the gigantic dragon sounding ice cold. Your people, the people of the Dream Pavilion, want to kill me, but I can't kill them? Besides, when they wanted to kill me, you didn't try to prevent them from doing so, but now that I want to kill them, do you think that you have any right to stop me? When Lan Zhao heard Lin Feng, she started shaking. Indeed, when these people arrived to kill Lin Feng, she didn't try to stop them. What gave her the right to try and prevent Lin Feng from getting his revenge by blocking his way? Get lost. The gigantic dragon moved forwards and threw Lan Zhao's body flying to the side. Then, it kept moving forwards towards the people of the Dream Pavilion. Immediately after, horrible shrieks spread through the atmosphere. All the people of the Dream Pavilion were thrown into the air. An extreme strength had smashed into them, destroying their bones, flesh and vital organs. Hiss, the dragon had slaughtered the people of the Dream Pavilion, but its 2 gigantic eyes revealed neither sympathy nor pity, they were just filled with killing intent. It fought until all the enemies were dead. At the moment when everybody wanted to kill him, who had felt any sympathy or pity for him? The world of cultivation was a cruel world without emotion. Those who were weak in their hearts died early. The rule was to kill or be killed. Very quickly, a sea of corpses appeared in front of the purple dragon. All the people of the Dream Pavilion except for Lan Zhao had died. Far in the distance, Aunt Yun's facial expression looked evilly cold, revealing her murderous desires. All of her people had died except for Lan Zhao. She had to get revenge and kill Lin Feng. However, at that moment, Meng Qing and Mr. Hua were preventing her from doing so, she couldn't even move closer to Lin Feng. Besides, Mo San Lan and Bing He Tang were smiling coldly. They both had ice-cold evil smiles on their faces. They hadn't expected such happy circumstances. For them, the more devastating that battle was, the more advantageous it was for them. The gigantic purple dragon slowly turned around. Its eyes looked as cold as before and it glanced at the crowd. The crowd looked at Lin Feng, but what they didn't know was that Lin Feng, at that moment, was exhausted and had almost no strength remaining. Using the ode to the spirit, was using the strength of his soul to boost his spirit's power, and then make his spirit transform into a ferocious dragon. It was extremely tiresome for his soul and vitality. Lin Feng already had the impression that he was about to faint from exhaustion. Mo San Lan had a huge smile on his face. He was slowly walking forward, taking small steps. Suddenly, he jumped into the air, throwing himself at Lin Feng. An endless quantity of vines appeared in the air and moved towards Lin Feng at full speed. Even though that purple dragon was terrifying, Mo San Lan had sensed that the purple dragon was just Lin Feng's spirit and that it wasn't a real dragon. Besides, it only had the strength of the first Qianqi layer, but that was still sufficient to kill 4 people of the first Qianqi layer. However, it wouldn't be enough against Mo San Lan. In such circumstances, if Mo San Lan managed to kill Lin Feng, the purple dragon would collapse by itself. Hiss, the dragon moved towards the vines. The vines were becoming longer and longer and started twining around the dragon's body. A bloodthirsty chi emerged from the vines and the purple dragon was finally defeated. It transformed into a purple lake and rushed back towards Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng couldn't endure it anymore, he was too exhausted. He fell down onto the ground and opened his eyes. He saw these bloodthirsty vines coming towards him, at the same time an ice-cold chi enveloped his body. Emo-san Lan and Bing He-tang were attacking Lin Feng together. They wanted to kill him and steal the cauldron. "You plan to kill me?" said Lin Feng, smiling with a warm smile on his face. He didn't feel threatened at all. His body flickered, a light flashed, and suddenly, an ancient cauldron appeared in Lin Feng's hand. It contained a mysterious, ancient chi. When the ancient cauldron appeared, everybody was stupefied. At that moment, Lin Feng had taken out the ancient cauldron. It was obviously the heavenly dragon cauldron. The crowd, who had no hope of ever being able to touch the cauldron, was still very excited when it appeared, and had hope again. What if a miracle happened and they were able to get it? "You all want the heavenly dragon cauldron? Here, you can have it," shouted Lin Feng furiously. Immediately, the heavenly dragon cauldron flew through the air towards Emo-san Lan. Lin Feng was offering it to him. Emo-san Lan was astonished. His vines stopped moving towards Lin Feng. Instead, he used them to catch the cauldron. Immediately after, he vigorously pulled it towards him. In a flash, it was almost in Emo-san Lan's hands. Bing He-tang released some ice energy and threw himself at Emo-san Lan. At that moment, he had already forgotten about Lin Feng. Even though Lin Feng had killed his disciples of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, they were less important than that ancient cauldron. If he managed to get that ancient cauldron, he would leave Shuiyu and go to even greater and more important places. How could Bing He-tang miss the opportunity to get the ancient cauldron? He wasn't the only one to think that way. Because of Lin Feng, Protector Kong had killed Emo-san Lan's son, and Emo-san Lan hated Lin Feng even more for that. But just before, when Emo-san Lan obtained the cauldron, he immediately focused on storing the cauldron and started running away at an incredible speed. People couldn't even believe their eyes. He didn't think that it would be that easy to acquire the heavenly dragon cauldron. Emo-san Lan, at that moment, couldn't help but look up at the sky and feel overjoyed. He hadn't killed Lin Feng yet, but after getting monstrously strong, he would come back and easily be able to kill Lin Feng. He didn't need to rush. The most important thing was to stay safe and leave with the cauldron. "Where are you going?" shouted Antune furiously. She jumped into the air and threw herself at Emo-san Lan, forgetting about Lin Feng for the time being. At that moment, Meng Qing and Mr. Hu didn't stop them. They instead moved back to Lin Feng's side. They were looking at the people who were farther and farther away. "It's not that easy to obtain the heavenly dragon cauldron," said Mr. Hua indifferently. Mr. Hua's eyes were filled with admiration while looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng, when he was threatened by the people of the Dream Pavilion, hadn't taken the ancient cauldron out, but when the situation had turned out to be really dangerous, he immediately threw away an incredibly precious treasure, without regret or hesitation. Courage, insight, cunning and resolution, coupled with Lin Feng's natural talent, would definitely turn him into an incredibly strong cultivator. Lin Feng's face turned deathly pale. He was smiling indifferently and took out a sheet, a pill recipe. "Mr. Hua, this is the recipe for spirit blood pills. Keep it safe. I will copy some other recipes for you," said Lin Feng while giving the recipe to Mr. Hua. If he hadn't been helped by Mr. Hua, maybe the outcome of these battles would have been different. He wouldn't even have been able to resist to Emo-san Lan and Bing He-tang. Lin Feng would remember that favor forever. Mr. Hua looked delighted. Without adhering to formalities with Lin Feng, he immediately put away the recipe and immediately handed a ring to Lin Feng while saying, "These are the things that you have asked me to get. Keep them safe." "Thank you," said Lin Feng while taking the ring. He immediately said, "Mr. Hua, how advanced is your knowledge when it comes to pills?" "So, I have no problem concocting Ling-level pills. I can make some Xian-level pills of lower quality as well, but it doesn't always succeed. I have about a 10% success rate. I am unable to make pills of higher levels. Xian-level pills of lower quality, 10% success rate." Mr. Hua's abilities when it came to concocting pills were already extremely advanced. Having a 10% success rate when it came to concocting Xian-level pills of lower quality was not a great success rate, but it was very high compared to others, which was why the demand for Xian-level pills were high. Mr. Hua certainly had many people who were interested in his services. "Mr. Hua, are you interested in concocting some pills with me? You could also teach a few things about pills," asked Lin Feng. Mr. Hua remained silent for a while and then said, while smiling, "Concocting pills together, no problem, but don't you want to chase the heavenly dragon cauldron? I'm not strong enough to own such a valuable item. How could I even get it back?" said Lin Feng while shaking his head and smiling. "If you cannot get it back, at least, you should make things hard for them. These days, the news that the heavenly dragon cauldron is in Celestial River will spread very quickly. If anyone wants it, it will not be easy for anyone, at least, for a certain period of time. In Celestial River, it will be a bloodbath because of the ancient cauldron. Even though, relying on your own strength, you are not necessarily able to take it back, since you have pill recipes, I could ask some old friends to help, then it might not be that difficult to get it back," said Mr. Hua while smiling. Lin Feng looked delighted. Since the precious treasure was there, many extremely strong people were going to try and steal it. The strongest ones could defeat a few of their opponents, but it wouldn't be an easy task to exterminate all those interested in the cauldron. Chapter 294, Mr. Qi. In a secret room, Lin Feng was sitting cross-legged and his eyes were firmly closed. Carefree and indifferent, Lin Feng was fused with the earth. A long thread of pure qi was fluctuating. It contained Lin Feng's soul energy. Lin Feng was practicing his surplus souls technique. It had been 2 days since the battle between the multiple groups. During these 2 days, Lin Feng had only been sitting in that secret room practicing cultivation, nothing else. His pure chi had recovered, the strength of his soul had also recovered, at the same time, he had improved the speed of his surplus soul ability. The strength of his soul was becoming stronger and stronger. He was also able to make even more surplus souls appear. He could make an even stronger purple spirit appear. In a battle, he would be much stronger than before. Lin Feng needed to be extremely strong. Therefore, before even having completely recovered from his injuries, Lin Feng had already started developing the number of his surplus souls. In order to become stronger, even if it was extremely difficult, Lin Feng was ready and willing to endure the pain and suffering required. He didn't want to be threatened by other people. He didn't want to rely on Meng Qing and other people each time a situation appeared where someone wanted to kill him. It was embarrassing for Lin Feng to be so weak. The fact that Meng Qing protected him once in a while was not a problem, but it couldn't always be the case. Time passed and the third day was already over. In that secret room, many purity stones of medium quality had already disappeared, but Lin Feng's ability to absorb pure chi was growing stronger. A white light was fluctuating in the atmosphere emitting whistling sounds. It was violently penetrating into Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng had the impression that he was intoxicated, it was so comfortable. The pure chi was revolving faster and faster around Lin Feng. Lin Feng's body was glittering and looked translucent. In the middle of the dazzling light, there was an incredible strength which seemed to be endless. It was the strength of pure chi, even though they were only small threads of pure chi, the fact that he was now absorbing enough pure chi for it to be visible implied that Lin Feng was getting closer and closer to reaching the Xin Qi layer. Boom! A soft explosion emerged inside Lin Feng's body. An endless supply of pure chi drowned into Lin Feng's body from heaven and earth. Besides, at the same time, a thread of pure chi emitted a bright and dazzling light and then immediately vanished. Phew! Lin Feng, whose eyes were closed, slightly opened his mouth and took a deep breath. He opened his eyes and looked so delighted that his eyes were twinkling. 9th Ling Qi layer. I still have one more step before I break through to the Xin Qi layer, now it's only a small step away, thought Lin Feng. 4 months, Lin Feng had dedicated all his time to studying the Zun Qi layer cultivator's memories and techniques. He had not reached the 9th Ling Qi layer as he was focusing on the pure Qi and techniques rather than just absorbing Qi. After the last big battle, he finally believed he now had enough understanding of pure Qi and could successfully advance. He had finally broken through to the 9th Ling Qi layer, but was still a small step away from breaking through to the Xian Qi layer. Even though Lin Feng had broken through to the 9th Qi layer, he didn't stand up. He slowly closed his eyes again and kept practicing his surplus soul technique. Lin Feng couldn't afford to relax and be lazy. No matter how tiresome, how painful, everything that he did was in accordance with his beliefs. Everything he did was because of his incredible ambition, to not get bullied anymore, and to put a stop to the people who wanted to kill him. Lin Feng spent 7 days in the secret room focusing on getting stronger. Outside of the secret room was a spacious guest room but nobody was inside at that moment. In the room next to Lin Feng's cultivation room, it was dark. From outside, that cultivation room looked like shelf but nobody knew that it was actually an entrance to a secret room. Meng Qing was probably cultivating as well. After all, that big battle had made her exhausted as well. Where is Mr. Hua, thought Lin Feng. He started walking to the guest room and opened the door and entered. Inside, it was a scenery filled with charm and beauty. There were many rooms, in one of the rooms, a vast and boundless heat had invaded the atmosphere. Apart from that heat, it also smelled like medicine. No, it's not correct. Mr. Qi, that's not correct, the 1,000 lotus flower leaves have to melt first and then they can be put into the mixture. Then, we have to use our soul to control it. The sounds of people arguing could be heard in the room where the heat came from. It was precisely Mr. Hua's voice. It seemed like he was arguing with someone else about something. Mr. Hua, you are wrong. If you first melt the lotus leaves and then put them into the mixture, you will lose half of the medicinal strength when you add them to the mixture, and it will be impossible to concoct Xian-level spirit blood pills, said the other voice. It seemed like that person was an old man like Mr. Hua. Besides, his voice sounded like he was stubbornly persisting in his own opinion. It seems like Mr. Hua and his friend were concocting Xian-level spirit blood pills, and that they didn't agree with each other, thought Lin Feng. Immediately after, he entered the room in which they were concocting pills. Apart from Mr. Hua, Lin Feng saw another old man, he was sitting down on a chair. Both of them were staring at the other, it seemed like they were unable to persuade each other. Besides, next to them was a huge cauldron. Mr. Hua had taken the recipe of the spirit blood pills and was discussing it with the other old man. Obviously, they were very well acquainted. Lin Feng glanced at the 2 old men and then looked at the red-haired old man. His heart started beating a bit faster. He recognized the old man who was with Mr. Hua. It was the old man who bid on the heavenly dragon cauldron in the auction room but who, in the end, let Lin Feng get it. The red-haired old man, when he saw Lin Feng, smiled and nodded. Senior, said Lin Feng while slightly bowing, as a sign of respect. Lin Feng, you provided us with the recipe of the spirit blood pills, we need you to tell us, do we have to make the lotus leaves melt first and then add them to the mixture or not? Asked Mr. Hua, he was only concerned about his argument with the red-haired old man. Stop talking nonsense. If you melt them first and add them to mixture, would your soul be strong enough to control the leaves so that their essence spreads evenly in the concoction? If the pills are not perfectly balanced with all the ingredients, can you still concoct Xian-level spirit blood pills? Said the red-haired old man, getting angry again. When Lin Feng saw these two old men argue, he smiled. In that world, being able to exchange ideas while insulting each other but remaining friendly was also an enviable thing. It could mean that a friendship had already reached a certain degree. Mr. Hua, Sr., I also did some research about that recipe, but my pill concoction abilities are extremely basic. I'm not able to concoct spirit blood pills, but I would like to have a try with the guidance from you, my seniors. We could see if Mr. Hua's suggestion works, even if there is no guarantee that it will work. Said Lin Feng, who made the red-haired old man frown. Lin Feng, who are you calling a senior? Call me Mr. Qi, damn it. Maybe because you have never concocted pills before, but the more people doesn't mean the merrier, it's actually the opposite and can get chaotic. People synchronize their souls in perfect harmony. Concocting pills is an extremely rigorous process, each step of the procedure is of highest importance. One careless move and the whole thing would be lost. Besides, it can lead to the cauldron being damaged or destroyed. Said the red-haired old man, sounding solemn and respectful. One person was more appropriate than two when concocting pills. I know about that, obviously, but maybe I have a solution. Said Lin Feng while smiling. Immediately after, he sat next to Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi, in front of the cauldron. You are two senior alchemists, you can feel the strength of a soul. Said Lin Feng. Immediately after, he closed his eyes. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi glanced at each other and then immediately closed their eyes. They then all started releasing the strength of their soul and slowly let it flow out. In a flash, Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi could feel the strength of each other's souls. It seemed like there were two sets of eyes angrily staring at each other. Their souls were in the atmosphere, but their souls were at odds. Every person was unique and would see things in their own way. It was impossible for two people to have perfectly identical beliefs and opinions, which was why it was difficult for several people to concoct pills together. However, at that moment, an illusion slowly appeared. It was Lin Feng's soul. That bright illusion immediately wrapped up the two old men's souls, and in a flash, it seemed like their souls had entered another world. These three people's souls seemed to be following the same pace and rhythm as if they were joined through a special connection. The bright illusion moved their soul power into the cauldron. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi could distinctly and clearly perceive what Lin Feng's soul was doing as if it was their own soul. It was a mysterious and mystical moment. At that moment, the light vanished from the atmosphere. That mysterious sensation vanished as well. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi's souls suddenly became at odds again. They recalled their souls back into their bodies and opened their eyes. They were both looking at Lin Feng. They looked delighted. Earth fusion. Indeed, I have broken through the earth dimension. Said Lin Feng while nodding. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi remained silent for a while and then both burst into an insane laughter. Mr. Hua, the fact that you have met Lin Feng is a stroke of luck. He knows the secret of earth fusion, which even we could only dream of. Thanks to him, we can concoct at the same time, while maintaining the efficiency to a high level. Said Mr. Qi while smiling. Before, it was impossible for Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi to concoct pills together, but since Lin Feng had the power of earth fusion, they would be able to concoct pills together and their souls could work together. They could clearly divide the work without interfering with the other. This made the chance of errors occurring very low. As alchemists, Lin Feng didn't need to beg them to accept working with him. It was a great chance for them to increase their knowledge and abilities by working together. Chapter 295, Generosity. At that moment, Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi were not arguing anymore. Mr. Hua nodded, smiled, then said, "It's a strike of luck indeed. Lin Feng has only been practicing cultivation for less than a decade. Yet he can already fuse with the earth. He can also defeat cultivators of the Xian Qi layer even though he only had the power of the 8th Ling Qi layer. In fact, I particularly look forward to seeing how strong and powerful he will be in the future." Yes. Said Mr. Qi while nodding. Mr. Hua had already told him about all the things which had happened in Celestial River. Lin Feng had been at the core of all these incidents. Lin Feng's natural talent was rare. The so-called geniuses of the biggest sects couldn't rival Lin Feng. Such geniuses as Lin Feng maybe appeared once every millennium. If they didn't die young, they usually reached the heavens. Mr. Qi looked impatient to see an authentic genius grow up. That would indubitably be very exciting. Lin Feng slightly smiled while shaking his head. He indeed had a high natural talent, but for the time being, he wasn't strong enough. There were so many people who were much stronger than him. He needed to be monstrously strong. If someday, he managed to reach the heavens and walked above the clouds while looking down at all living creatures, what a mighty and epic moment would that be? Mr. Hua, Mr. Qi, let's refine some Xian-level spirit blood pills together. We'll first start heating the cauldron. Said Lin Feng. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi looked delighted. They both looked forward to concocting some pills all together, the three of them. Refining some Xian-level pills of medium quality was extremely complex. Even though Mr. Qi and Mr. Hua had been arguing, they also didn't really intend to refine Xian-level pills of medium quality. But Lin Feng had opened their eyes and it was like a ray of sunshine through the clouds. It seemed like nothing was impossible. If Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi had concocted pills, they would only have been able to concoct Xian-level pills of lower quality, but since the earth fusion enabled them to be in symbiosis, the level of the pills could be increased significantly. They were, of course, willing to give it a try. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi turned Lin Feng. "Is everything ready?" asked Lin Feng. Immediately after, the two old men nodded. Lin Feng closed his eyes and entered in the mysterious dimension which enabled him to fuse with the earth. The strength of his soul emerged and invaded the entire atmosphere. That strength wrapped up the strength of the two old men's souls and immediately after moved into the cauldron. A fireball appeared and embraced the cauldron, boiling the spiritual herbs which were inside. Fiery herbs, said Mr. Hua, sounding indifferent. Mr. Qi understood what that meant, and then his body faintly shook, and then some pure Qi strength moved into the cauldron, breaking apart the fiery herbs and evenly spreading them in the concoction. At that moment, Lin Feng was responsible for making sure that their souls remained on the same wavelength. Mr. Hua was in charge of maintaining the fire while Mr. Qi was in charge of the concoction. Every single step had to be carried out rigorously. The smell of the pills slowly started invading the entire atmosphere. The odor around the cauldron was getting more and more intense. Sanguine flames, said Mr. Hua after a while in a low voice. Mr. Qi had already prepared everything. A long blood-red thread spread in the air and moved into the cauldron. 1,000 lotus leaves, shouted Mr. Hua. Immediately after, 1,000 lotus leaves moved towards the cauldron. The 1,000 lotus leaves couldn't be cooked at the same speed though because of the fire. I will help you, said Mr. Qi in a low voice. His incredibly strong soul came to wrap up the leaves and disperse them evenly and above the fire, enabling them to gradually melt into the sanguine flames. That part was very difficult but was crucial as well. At that moment, Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi were anxiously frowning. They released the entire strength of their souls, which made cold sweat unceasingly drip from their bodies. It was consuming all of their soul strength and pushing them to the limit. At that moment, the lotus leaves were starting to slide to the side. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi started shaking. Had they failed? At that moment, the great soul, which had been wrapping up theirs, disappeared as well. In a flash, the wonderful feeling, which had invaded their hearts before, disappeared. Hopelessness replaced their positive feelings. Their strength wasn't sufficient to refine Xian-level pills of medium quality. They didn't control the strength of their soul with enough mastery. Maybe after breaking through to the 4th Xian-Qi layer, they would be able to achieve their aim. The strength of their souls had already come out of the cauldron, however, at that moment, the strength of the soul kept moving into the cauldron. It wrapped up the 1,000 lotus leaves and put them into the sanguine flames. A bright and resplendent red light emerged in the atmosphere. It almost looked like the lotus leaves were about to blossom. It was splendid. It's Lin Feng, he hasn't given up. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi's hearts were pounding. They released the strength of their soul once again. One took control of the spiritual herbs and the other took control of the temperature control. After a brief moment, all the spiritual herbs had melted. At that moment, bright red lotus flowers had appeared on the lotus leaves. It was absolutely gorgeous. Close, shouted Mr. Hua. The lotus flowers slowly closed themselves. Immediately after, the fire lost in intensity. The smell of the pills was getting stronger and stronger. A bright and resplendent red light was illuminating the atmosphere and kept revolving above the mouth of the cauldron. Mr. Qi, shouted Mr. Hua. He then yelled again, his voice was making the atmosphere vibrate, finish the pill. Boom! A bright and resplendent red light burst from the cauldron. Mr. Qi had anticipated this already. He jumped up in the air, breaking through the ceiling, abruptly raised his hand and grabbed something within the red light. He immediately came back down and opened the palm of his hand. Amazingly, a small oval object appeared. It was illuminated by a red light which kept fluttering around it. It's finished. It's a success. The three of them suddenly looked truly excited. They had worked together relying on 3 very strong cultivators' strength. They had all poured endless effort into this process and become closer because of it. It sounded simple, but concocting Xian-level spirit blood pills had sucked up a lot of their energy. Besides, at that moment, Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi felt like he was going to collapse. Mr. Hua, this time, Lin Feng is the one who has used the most strength to concoct that Xian-level spirit blood pill. He is also the one who has provided us with the recipe. Finally, at the most crucial moment, he is also the one saved the situation. If he hadn't been there, we wouldn't have been able to refine that spirit blood pill. Therefore, it belongs to Lin Feng. What do you think? Said Mr. Qi. They had only prepared the ingredients to concoct the pill. Besides, obtaining 1 pill was already an exceptional success for them, let alone making more. I, of course, have no objection to that. The pill belongs to Lin Feng, said Mr. Hua while smiling and nodding. When Lin Feng heard them, a warm feeling invaded his heart. In the continent, there were many evildoers who constantly plotted against other people, but there were also many people who were very kind and who were honest and sincere to others. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi belonged to the second category of people. That pill was Xian-level spirit blood pill of medium quality. It would have been incredibly useful to them, particularly if it helped them advance before a potentially fatal battle, but they preferred giving it to Lin Feng. Of course, it was because they were very honest. Besides, Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi were very good friends already and neither would disagree. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. Mr. Hua, Mr. Qi, the 3 of us being together to concoct the pills was absolutely essential. This is the result of our teamwork and it is a success for us as a group. Nobody has more merit than the other. As far as the pill recipe is concerned, I had already promised it to Mr. Hua, so it doesn't count. Therefore, it is not my recipe and the pill does not belong to me. Lin Feng refused to take the spirit blood pill. If he wanted to kill people, he used his sword. But if people were kind to him, he was happy to make friends with them. No, in terms of strength, that pill is very beneficial to you, said Mr. Hua while shaking his head. Mr. Hua, that pill would be very beneficial to me, however it would be better if one of you took it. With my current strength, taking the pill would be a waste. I would not be able to absorb the full power of the pill. It would be better if one of you took it. If you become stronger, that will also help me. Lin Feng once more declined the two old men's offer. Actually, Lin Feng was just stating facts. A cultivator of the Ling Qi layer taking a Xian level pill of medium quality was a waste. He would not be able to absorb even half of its power. Mr. Hua, you can take the pill, said Mr. Qi, not trying to convince Lin Feng anymore. Instead, he was giving it to Mr. Hua. But Mr. Hua also shook his head and said, old friend, even though you are not as good as me at concocting pills, you are still stronger than me. This pill is for you. It would be more appropriate for you to take it. Stop talking nonsense. Since when am I not as good as you at concocting pills? Said Mr. Qi angrily. If you're not taking it, you can try to give it to Lin Feng again, said Mr. Hua with a disdainful expression on his face which made Lin Feng smile wryly. How come these two were talking about concocting ability again? I don't know, but, Mr. Hua, Mr. Qi, that pill must be taken as soon as possible for maximum potency. It doesn't matter if you are not interested. When Lin Feng finished talking, he immediately made an eat gesture to them by placing his fingers to his mouth. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi looked at each other and both immediately burst into a fit of laughter, at the same time. Chapter 296, Join him before his success. After Lin Feng had left, Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi remained in the room where they were concocting the pills. Old friend, seriously, you are younger than me, yet your cultivation level is higher than mine. You are already at the peak of the third Xian Qi layer and your natural talent is extremely high. These spirit blood pills increase the strength of the blood vessels and make the soul much stronger. If you take it, you would have high chance of breaking through to the fourth Xian Qi layer. Even in a city as vast as Celestial River, we would still have absolute power. Mr. Hua was looking at Mr. Qi in a solemn and respectful way. Therefore, old friend, we shouldn't fight again. Mr. Qi was a bit surprised. He remained silent for a moment and finally nodded while saying, all right. Old friend, don't be so serious. In the future, with Lin Feng's natural talent and the earth fusion, we will have even more good pills. Do you think that I will not take any in the future? Ha? Mr. Qi was a bit surprised. He was staring at Mr. Hua and said, what you mean is? Mr. Hua slightly nodded and said, you guessed right, I am getting ready to follow Lin Feng. Follow Lin Feng. Mr. Qi's pupils shrank. Lin Feng had broken through to the 8th Ling Qi layer, but Mr. Hua was a strong cultivator of the 3rd Xian Qi layer. Surprisingly, he wanted to follow Lin Feng. Indeed, follow Lin Feng, said Mr. Hua, sounding absolutely serious. He then said, sounding solemn and respectful, old friend, deep in your heart, you're also able to evaluate Lin Feng's ability to concoct pills. Mr. Qi frowned and then said while nodding, earth fusion, that exceptional soul strength and Lin Feng's level of talent, his destiny is to become a great alchemist. You're wrong, old friend, said Mr. Hua while shaking his head. I'm wrong? Indeed, you are wrong. His earth fusion, his amazing soul strength, he's not only good for concocting pills. Lin Feng is extremely good at everything. Provided that he's willing to do something, he always manages to master it. He can become a monstrously strong cultivator. He can become an alchemist, a blacksmith, a commander, anything. He only has to be willing to do something and he'll be able to achieve it. If we are patient, we will see incredibly wonderful things happen. Mr. Hua was speaking slowly. Mr. Qi's eyes were twinkling. Indeed, with the earth fusion and his incredible soul strength, Lin Feng would be able to accomplish anything, only relying on his monstrous talent. Old friend, you have observed Lin Feng's behavior and ability with your own eyes, he is worth trusting. You know, we may be cultivators of the Xian Qi layer, but we are not that young anymore. We might not be able to have any more breakthroughs in this lifetime. Our lifespan is not limitless. Nowadays, we have a certain reputation in Celestial River, but it also has its limits and will eventually fade. Following Lin Feng will provide us with many new opportunities. When Mr. Qi heard Mr. Hua, he shivered. Indeed, ordinary people had a life expectancy of 100 years. For people of the Qi and Ling Qi layers, provided that they were strong and healthy, could usually hope to live until 150 years old. Besides, cultivators of the Xian Qi layer could to live to the age of 200 years old, but that was the maximum. However, for those who could become amazingly strong cultivators, it was a different story. They could live until the age of 500 years old. Such cultivators could often reach the heavens on the path of cultivation after 300 years. Even though Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi had a prestigious status in Celestial River, but on the scale of the continent, they were nobodies. Besides, sooner or later, they would reach their limit, then become weaker, and they wouldn't have the opportunity to improve their cultivation anymore. Following someone strong and making them stronger is easy, but providing help when it is needed the most is difficult. Old friend, what Lin Feng needs now is assistance. If we follow him, he will be truly grateful. Besides, on the day when Lin Feng reaches the heavens, if you only want to help him become even greater at that moment, will he pay attention to you? Mr. Hua was speaking slowly, old friend, we cannot wait for Lin Feng to become extremely powerful to follow him. Now, we have a great opportunity and it will enable us to obtain some power and influence too. We have the opportunity to follow a genius, isn't that formidable? Besides, if we follow Lin Feng, we might get the chance to become stronger cultivators and not have to worry about our lifespan. Wait for Lin Feng to be influential and then follow him. Whispered Mr. Qi, could we really become stronger and no longer await our death? Alright, old friend, take your time to think about it. First, take a spirit blood pill to break through to the next layer. I will help you absorb it. Said Mr. Hui, interrupting Mr. Qi's train of thought. Mr. Qi nodded and said, alright. When they finished talking, the two old men walked to the secret room. A month had passed, and Celestial River was going through some turbulent times. In the western part of Celestial River, there were some of the strongest cultivators of the Haoyu sect. In the northern part, there were some amazingly strong cultivators of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village. Besides, there were even some extremely strong cultivators who had come from other distant places. For example, there were some extremely strong cultivators from the Luoxia sect, the Imperial City, the Wanshou sect, the Yu clan and the Imperial clan. All of these groups of people had sent people to Celestial River. Apart from these people, there were also some unknown people, whose influence was unknown. The entire city of Celestial River had been encircled. It was only possible to get into the city, but leaving was impossible. No matter who, they couldn't take half a step outside of the ancient city of Celestial River. Everybody only had one goal: obtain the Heavenly Dragon Cauldron, one of the 10 legendary cauldrons. It was a treasure which dated back to the ancient times, but nobody knew exactly how useful it was. But since it had become one of the 10 legendary cauldrons, it probably was an incredible treasure. That object didn't belong to the history of Shuyu but to the history of the continent of the Nine Clouds. If some people in the continent knew that one of the 10 legendary cauldrons was in Celestial River, it would turn into a bloodbath. Apart from Shuyu cultivators, if people other countries learned that the precious treasure was in Shuyu, they would also send forces to take it. At that moment, in Celestial River, in a thatched hut, there was a silhouette wearing a bamboo hat. That person was wearing ragged clothes and was sitting on the ground. Their head was hanging low. However, an evil light was flashing in the person's eyes. A bunch of bastards, said that person in an evil voice. The person's eyes were dark green and looked extremely cold. The person was the one who had obtained the Heavenly Dragon Cauldron, Mo San Lan. After everything happened, he hadn't thought that the situation would turn out so difficult. After Mo San Lan obtained the ancient cauldron, his escape had been obstructed by a myriad of people who wanted to kill him. He wanted to rush out of Celestial River, but he had nearly been killed. Later on, more and more strong cultivators had been gathering around the city. Mo San Lan had no possibility of escape, he was completely encircled. At that moment, he was severely injured. Even though he had been injured, he had also killed a certain number of his pursuers. These days, Mo San Lan was like a beggar who nobody wanted to be associated with. He was chased by a myriad of people who wanted to kill him. He was under extreme pressure. Mo San Lan was breathing heavily, pure qi was revolving around his body. His qi was unstable. During that short time, he swallowed an incredible quantity of pure qi, but horrible things were progressively approaching him. It seemed like oblivion was awaiting. At that moment, Mo San Lan frowned, an evil expression flashed in his eyes. In the distance, some people were moving towards him. Sister, there is a thatched hut there, let's go and rest there, said a girl. Immediately after, everybody started walking towards the hut. Mo San Lan was in corner, he was dispirited. A short moment after, 3 beautiful silhouettes entered the thatched hut. Sister, look, there's somebody here, let's switch to another place, said the younger girl in a soft voice. Why would we? Let's make him get the hell out of here, said the other one aggressively. Immediately after, she arrived on Mo San Lan's side and said, sounding ice cold, we belong to the Luoxia sect and need to have a rest. Leave and find another place to stay. Switch to another place, said Mo San Lan with a strange expression on his face. He slowly raised his head. His face was filled with an evil expression which made the 3 people shiver. Their facial expressions drastically changed. Slash, slash. Several vines appeared in the air. In a flash, the girl's body was constricted by the vines, which were sucking the blood and flesh from under her skin. Ah, a horrible shriek spread in the air. The 2 other people started running away, but in a flash, another vine moved towards one of the girls and firmly wrapped around her body. Don't kill me, desperately shouted that girl. Immediately after, her body turned into a pile of skin and bones which hit the floor. 2 girls had already been killed. From the 3 girls, there was only one left. Mo San Lan, surprisingly, you're here, said a cold voice. Immediately after, the thatched hut was completely frozen. Mo San Lan was shivering, he was unable to deal with the younger girl. Boom! An ice chi rushed into the thatched hut and Mo San Lan immediately tried to leave. Mo San Lan, I've been chasing you for such a long time, you already want to escape? Said that ice-cold voice. Bing, he, tongue. When the young girl heard these incredibly evil shouts, she immediately sat down onto the ground. When she saw her 2 sisters' corpses, her body started shaking in grief. Chapter 297, The Luoxia Sect. At that moment, a person entered the now empty thatched hut. The young girl slightly calmed down. She raised her head and looked at the silhouette who had just entered the thatched hut. That person was wearing a monstrous bronze mask. The girl was so terrified that her hands dug into the ground. She kept crawling backwards. The pair of eyes behind the bronze mask looked swift and fierce, ice-cold, but they didn't look at the young girl at all, as if the person was lost in thoughts. Emo-san Lan and Bing Tang are here, surprisingly. Besides, it seems like Emo-san Lan still has the heavenly dragon cauldron. Bing Tang has been chasing him. Thought Ba Dao. That thatched hut wasn't far from the place where Lin Feng and him were staying. Mr. Hua's residence was very close to this place. He was walking near the thatched hut and had sensed the cold chi. He quickly approached and then he had immediately heard Emo-san Lan shout Bing Tang's name. In the distance, another voice spread in the atmosphere which surprised Ba Dao and made him shiver. He jumped away, he didn't feel like creating more trouble. Stay there, said an ice-cold voice. At the moment when Ba Dao was getting ready to leave the thatched hut, a violent energy oppressed his body. Then someone punched through the air and the energy transformed into a blade which bombarded the atmosphere. Extremely loud explosion sounds spread through the atmosphere. The thatched was already wrecked. Ba Dao's body was completely oppressed and fell down onto the ground. There was a man in front of him who glanced at Ba Dao. It was a young man. Immediately after, he looked at the two corpses as well as the young girl sitting on the ground. Your methods are cruel and evil, said the young man sounding ice-cold while releasing deadly chi. I didn't kill them, said Ba Dao sounding cold and detached, but his interlocutor didn't pay attention to him and his deadly chi was becoming even denser. Do you think that I would believe you? Said the young man sounding ice-cold. You kill my two sister disciples and want to do evil things to my other sister disciple. I caught you red-handed and now you want to escape? He didn't kill them, said the girl sitting on the ground while standing up. She looked at the young man in an ice-cold way. Fellow disciples? A moment ago, her brother disciple was near the thatched hut. He should have noticed that her two sisters being killed, but at the moment when they shouted for help, he did not come to help. He had just arrived after Ba Dao entered the hut. That was her brother disciple, how ridiculous. The young man couldn't deal with the murderer, so he wanted to use Ba Dao as a scapegoat. Sister, don't worry, since I am here, you don't need to be afraid of being bullied. Besides, I will avenge our two sisters. Just as the young girl had guessed, that young man really wanted to make Ba Dao a scapegoat. If he and his sister came out safe and sound while the two others had been killed, how would he be able to explain why he hadn't stopped the murderer? Wouldn't he lose face? Ha! Ba Dao frowned. That young girl guessed right, that young man intended to make him as a scapegoat. Was it that easy though? Since you want to kill him, what can I do? But I know that he hasn't killed them, said the young girl looking disgusted. You don't know how to differentiate good from bad, said the young man. His facial expression looked strict and rigid. He then added, if you had been raped and killed by him, isn't revenge important? Wu Gang, you're really shameless. That young girl looked slightly pale and her face was distorted. At the same time, Ba Dao realized what was going on as well. That guy wanted to kill him. Yun Shi, you are so naive. You're not prepared to accept some things, but I like you that way, you're so innocent. Unfortunately, the only thing we can have is a one-night stand, you are not wife material, said Wu Gang while smiling coldly. He had always been interested in Yun Shi, but she had never been interested in him. Proud and ambitious as he was uncomfortable not getting what he wanted. However, he now had the opportunity to make his evil thoughts come to reality at that moment. When Yun Shi heard Wu Gang, her face turned deathly pale. He was really shameless. Sister, don't worry, I will kill him first and then I will take care of you, said Wu Gang while smiling. Immediately after, he looked at Ba Dao in an ice-cold way, his eyes were filled with murderous intentions. Ba Dao remained silent. A light flashed and his moon-breaking blade appeared in his hand. A piercingly cold and extremely brutal energy emerged from the blade. You're not weak, 7th Ling Chi layer in your weapon is a spiritual weapon of higher quality, however, as before, you have run into a dead end, said Wu Gang while smiling coldly. He was one of the most outstanding disciples of the Luoxia sect, he had broken through to the 9th Ling Chi layer. His silhouette flickered and he then took a huge step. A illusion on his side transformed into opaque rosy clouds which filled the atmosphere. It was endless, mysterious and unfathomable, it was the sunset cloud skill. Slash! Shouted Ba Dao. Ba Dao's blade lacerated the air, it seemed like the atmosphere was being torn apart. After that, his blade fell down onto the opponent's attack. It seemed like the atmosphere was torn apart. After that, that blade lacerated the endless and mysterious energy. It felt like that blade was easily cutting through the energy, like his blade was cutting air. The sunset cloud skill was a D-level skill. Sunset clouds emerged from the cultivator's palm. It was vast and boundless but very difficult to carry out. However, in case of success, it was a terrifying attack. Boom! The enemy's hand landed on Ba Dao's body which made him groan in pain, and his body was projected backwards. That cultivator had broken through to the 9th Ling Chi layer and was close to the Xian Chi layer. He could already control a meager amount of pure Chi and was difficult to fight against. In Xueyu, the Luoxia sect doesn't have the greatest influence, but if anyone dares look down on my sect. Except for the 8 high officials of Xueyu, no matter who it is, I despise them. No need to say that it especially applies to such worthless and insignificant people such as you, said Wu Gang sounding arrogant. He was looking at Yun Shi while talking as if he had been talking to her, but she didn't care about him at all. How ridiculous. Is that so? Said a voice which echoed through the atmosphere. It was extremely distinct yet nobody was visible. Wu Gang frowned and said coldly, "Show yourself." Ba Dao was smiling, except for the 8 high officials, Wu Gang despised everybody else. Very quickly, Wu Gang was going to realize that he was a fool. You dare say such arrogant things, and now you don't even know the location of the person you are speaking down to. How ridiculous, said Ba Dao coldly when he saw that Wu Gang looked so arrogant. Shut the hell up. It's probably a shameless liar just like you, just another shameless person, said Wu Gang sounding cold and detached, but when finished talking, his heart twitched. He abruptly turned his head around and a distorted expression appeared on his face. Someone had been standing directly behind him, that person had appeared in absolute silence. That person looked clear and had limpid eyes. That person was a bit younger than Wu Gang. He looked handsome as well, his face didn't contain the least bit of shamelessness. Who are you? Asked Wu Gang to Lin Feng coldly. He didn't recognize Lin Feng. Lin Feng gave a mysterious impression to Wu Gang. Lin Feng looked indifferent and carefree like a gentle breeze, as if Lin Feng was just an illusion on the wind. You despise everyone who looks down on your sect except for the 8 high officials. Since it's like that, there is no need to tell you anything, the only thing that you need to know is that we are enemies, that's enough. Lin Feng was smiling. A moment before, Wu Gang had said it himself, except for the 8 high officials, he despised everybody else. Even though I, Wu Gang, am very proud, is not willing to make an enemy of others without reason. If there is the possibility, I prefer making friends, said Wu Gang. Wu Gang couldn't sense Lin Feng's presence so he was feeling unsafe. How shameless, cursed Yun Shi. Wu Gang was really shameless. She felt disgusted by him. He is my friend. You wanted to kill him a moment ago. Are we friends or enemies, you tell me? Said Lin Feng while smiling coldly and pointing at Ba Dao. Wu Gang enjoyed using his power to bully those weaker than him, while Lin Feng could do the same. I'm giving you face, don't be shameless. I am the second best core disciple of the Luoxia sect. What do you intend to do, acting so arrogantly in front of me? Wu Gang couldn't reply to Lin Feng's question so he immediately became aggressive and announced his status. After mentioning the Luoxia sect, Lin Feng would definitely be afraid. I'm so scared, said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. His silhouette flickered and he disappeared from his original position. When Lin Feng reappeared, he was within arm's reach of Wu Gang. Die! Furiously shouted Wu Gang. His sunset clouds attack appeared again. The atmosphere was illuminated by rosy clouds, it looked incredible. The attack was just as opaque and unfathomable as before. However, the endless rosy clouds were extremely distinct for Lin Feng who was in fusion with the earth. He shook his finger out of which sword energies emerged and whistled in the air. He immediately attacked Wu Gang with his finger. PSH. Ah! A horrible shriek spread in the atmosphere. Wu Gang's body was projected back of 10 meters. His facial expression looked glum. At that moment, in the middle of his palm, blood was pouring down. A moment before, Lin Feng's sword-like finger had immediately pierced the palm of his hand. What a terrifying sharpness! Except for the 8 high officials, you despise everybody else, as expected, you are a real genius, said Lin Feng while laughing disdainfully on the tone of a joke. Chapter 298, The Scapegoat. When Yunxi saw that Lin Feng had defeated Wu Gang's sunset cloud so easily and had even injured him, her beautiful eyes started twinkling. How strong! Who the hell are you? Wu Gang's palm was bleeding. He was evilly staring at Lin Feng. To which sect did Lin Feng belong? Why had he never heard about him before? Even though he had just said that, except for the 8 high officials, he despised everybody, he was just exaggerating. His ego had made him say those words. But the disciples of the other sects who could rival him were actually very few. He was well aware that they were completely different from the person who was standing before him. You are Lin Feng? At that moment, Yunxi asked in a low voice. Lin Feng's name was already famous in Celestial River. He was carefree and ruthless. He was 18 years old but had defeated Bing Yuan, the Blade Elder Lengyu, and he had even killed 4 cultivators of the Xin Shi layer. At the Luoxia sect, many disciples were talking about Lin Feng. Yunxi had already heard about him a few times, trying to imagine what Lin Feng looked like. She had imagined that Lin Feng was arrogant and rude but the young man who was standing there in front of her looked handsome and delicate. However, his proud temperament reminded her of the rumors surrounding Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at Yunxi and smiled. He looked handsome. He slightly nodded at her. Lin Feng's smile made Yunxi's heartbeat accelerate. He nodded, it's really Lin Feng. Since ancient times, beautiful women liked heroic men. At the Luoxia sect, many girls wanted to see Lin Feng, that powerful and elegant young man. At that moment, Lin Feng's smile had the same effect as a gentle breeze on Yunxi's body. In comparison with Lin Feng, Wu Gang looked extremely ugly. He was far from being able to rival Lin Feng in looks. Lin Feng. Wu Gang was stupefied. When he heard that name, he suddenly looked terrified. Lin Feng was able to kill cultivators of the Xian Shi layer. Besides, he had killed Bing Yuan of the Ice and Snow Mountain village. Therefore, Lin Feng wouldn't hesitate for a moment when killing him, who belonged to the Luoxia sect. Lin Feng, there is a misunderstanding, said Wu Gang while smiling warmly. He suddenly forgot that he wanted to kill Lin Feng a moment before. His hand was even still bleeding from the wound. "A misunderstanding?" said Lin Feng with a cold smile on the corner of his mouth. "Ba Dao, is there a misunderstanding? He and the girls belong to the Luoxia sect. Emote-san Lan killed the two other girls. He perfectly knows about that. Because he cannot defeat Emote-san Lan, he used me as a scapegoat. Besides, from his previous words it is clear that he was definitely planning to rape and kill the remaining girl, and then accuse me of doing it. He perfectly knew everything from the beginning. There is no misunderstanding." Ba Dao's voice sounded ice-cold, which made Wu Gang's facial expression turn glum. "It is really a misunderstanding. I didn't know that you were Lin Feng's friend," continued Wu Gang while smiling. "So what? You don't think that it is shameful to come and use someone else as scapegoat? Now, I feel like killing you, and that means I will kill you," said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. He then started walking slowly, which made Wu Gang's smile turn rigid. "Lin Feng, nothing has to be set in stone. You can give me some conditions to live. Besides, my sister disciple, Yunxi, is pure and fresh. If you like her, you can play with her as you wish. What do you think?" Wu Gang was slowly stepping backwards. He didn't want to fight, his courage had already been crushed. He now knew Lin Feng's identity, he didn't dare to fight anymore. "You're so shameless," said Lin Feng, whose silhouette flickered just like an illusion. At that moment, Wu Gang's hand shook as well. An incredible quantity of poisonous qi invaded the atmosphere, which surprised Lin Feng, who immediately stopped. He raised his hand and the poisonous qi immediately dispersed. However, at that moment, Wu Gang suddenly grabbed Yunxi and was staring at Lin Feng. "Lin Feng, look at my sister disciple, she is so fresh and pure. Besides, she likes you. Wouldn't it be a waste if she died?" Lin Feng was surprised. He hadn't thought that he was that kind of person. He had taken Yunxi as a hostage to threaten Lin Feng. What did he intend to do? Yunxi was also his fellow disciple. She wasn't Lin Feng's friend. However, Wu Gang was taking her as a hostage. Lin Feng was really startled. Yunxi hadn't thought that Wu Gang would do such a thing either. What Wu Gang was doing was utterly illogical. However, Yunxi was looking at Lin Feng with pleading eyes. She had already seen Emote-san Lan kill her two sister disciples, and then the ugly Wu Gang had shown himself. She felt hopeless, lonely, and desperate. She wished someone would show her some sympathy and consideration. The daring young hero whom she had wished would come and save her had appeared. Besides, he was very handsome. That was like a ray of light in her heart. She had a strange sensation though, as if she had been floating through the air. She had the impression that her heart had become vast and boundless. Taking advantage of a woman who was lost in her heart was extremely easy. "How shameless," said Lin Feng coldly while looking at Wu Gang. "So what? Lin Feng, surely you can't stand seeing such a pure and beautiful flower fade? Look how delicate her skin is. She's just turned 17. Said Wu Gang, who ignored Lin Feng's words. He just kept talking. An ice-cold-looking blade suddenly pressed against Yunxi's face. When Lin Feng saw the girl's pure and beautiful eyes, he felt like he couldn't leave her and had to do something, even though he didn't even know her. He. The power of a woman's beauty is impressive. Sister, don't you always talk about Lin Feng? Now, it seems that Lin Feng is also interested in you. Look how good he is to you. It seems like you two are a perfect match," said Wu Gang while slowly pulling back Yunxi. Yunxi had mixed feelings. Wu Gang was her fellow disciple and acted so shamelessly and evil. Wu Gang was using her life to threaten a stranger. Lin Feng and her didn't know each other, but Lin Feng wasn't going to attack Wu Gang to save her. She was in a difficult position. Far away in the distance, some silhouettes were moving towards the hut. When Lin Feng saw that there were some silhouettes flying through the sky, he frowned. Besides, Wu Gang looked delighted. His dagger suddenly disappeared. He kept dragging Yunxi backwards. He shouted loudly, "The elders have arrived at the perfect time. Someone wants to kill us, the disciples of the Luoxia sect." These people who were coming precisely belonged to the Luoxia sect. In a flash, they arrived on Wu Gang's side. "Wu Gang, what's going on?" asked that person coldly while glancing at the corpses on the ground. "Elder, Lin Feng is a criminal and attacked me by surprise. He also killed some of our disciples. He also planned to rape Yunxi, my fellow disciple. Luckily, I risked my life to protect her, preventing Lin Feng from attacking. I am lucky that you arrived at the critical moment," said Wu Gang, which made the people of the Luoxia sect coldly stare at Lin Feng. "Elder, Wu Gang is shameless. The one who killed my two fellow disciples was someone else. Besides, the one who wanted to rape me is Wu Gang. He just took a dagger and put it against my face, threatening Lin Feng," said Yunxi honestly. Wu Gang was way too shameless in trying to accuse others. "Sister, I took you to threaten Lin Feng? What is the nature of your relationship with Lin Feng? I know that Lin Feng's words made you confused, but in front of the elders, you don't need to lie," said Wu Gang coldly. Yunxi's face turned deathly pale, she was speechless. "Yunxi, stop causing trouble," said the great elder, sounding indifferent. Yunxi was astonished. She looked at him and said, "You don't believe me either. It's the truth, it was really Wu Gang who did all these things." "All right, shut up now," shouted the great elder. Yunxi started shaking when she heard him. Besides, an indifferent smile appeared on Wu Gang's face at the same time. What a naive girl. Wu Gang was the genius of the Luoxia sect. He had been trained for many years in the sect. The elder had obviously witnessed what had happened but was turning a blind eye to the truth. Besides, she wasn't that important in the sect when compared with Wu Gang. Besides, elders we all seniors, they didn't need to know any of the details. If there was a problem, they would always take Wu Gang's side and protect him. The great elder looked at Lin Feng with an ice-cold glare. Lin Feng, how audacious. You dared kill members of the Luoxia sect, said another elder coldly. Immediately after, several silhouettes flickered and the members of the Luoxia sect encircled Lin Feng. When Lin Feng saw these people, a cold expression appeared in his eyes. A moment before, Wu Gang had used him as a scapegoat and now these people, because of Wu Gang's lies, wanted to kill him too? Lin Feng understood things much better than Yun Shi. How could he not understand the morally corrupt actions of these people? Nonetheless, was killing Lin Feng really that easy? Chapter 299, Powerful Energy Filling the Atmosphere. Elders, you must all stop immediately, said Yun Shi while looking at the elders surrounding Lin Feng. She looked nervous and yelled, this really has nothing to do with Lin Feng. How can you all be so unfair? Arg, shut up. Yun Shi's body flew away and crashed into the ground. She raised her head and saw that she was struck by her own master. She felt extremely cold in her heart, cold to the extent that it was piercing to the bones. She devoted her life to the sect, rarely leaving it to the extent that it had almost become her permanent home. She had little experience in the real world, therefore, there were many things which she didn't understand. In her heart, she had always had the feeling that the sect was a place where she would always be safe. But at that moment, her heart had been invaded with bitter feelings. She had just seen the true face of her sect. She had seen the coldness and cruelty of these people. That coldness was enough to make her feel hopeless. At that moment, Yun Shi's world had been crushed. The sect was no longer the same in her heart. She wasn't seeing any of the warmth, only desolate coldness. When she saw her master's cold and indifferent expression, she finally realized that that world wasn't as simple and pure as she thought. The people of the Luoxia sect weren't as kind and caring as she thought. A single teardrop slowly ran down her cheek. It was a tear of hopelessness. She had also realized that no matter what she said, no matter how loud she shouted, nobody would pay attention to her. When Lin Feng saw Yun Shi's teardrop, he sighed. Yun Shi was way too naive. She had never understood that there were evil people running her sect. That was the hypocrisy of the world. It wasn't about who was in the right or wrong, it was more about understanding the other party's real objective. Sister, because of a stranger you're now suffering, and you surprisingly dared humiliate an elder in front of everybody, said Wu Gang indifferently. Yun Shi looked at him in an ice-cold way. Everything was happening because of Wu Gang. He was such a disgusting person, but Wu Gang didn't care about her opinion. Wu Gang was just thinking that it would be a pity if he didn't have the opportunity to play with such a beautiful girl. Elders, Lin Feng is a shameless enemy. Not only did he attack me by surprise, but he has also killed 2 of our disciples and fooled Yun Shi. He is a worthless and disgusting animal. He must die. Wu Gang turned around and smiled coldly, his face was filled with murderous intentions. Indeed. That disgusting person must die. We must avenge our disciples, said another elder immediately. Kill him. We'll definitely kill him, said all the elders consecutively as if they were judges giving Lin Feng the death sentence. In their eyes, Lin Feng's life was already in their hands. If they wanted to kill him, they could kill him. Amongst these elders of the Luoxia sect, 3 of them were at the first Qianqi layer, 2 at the second Qianqi layer and 1 at the third Qianqi layer. In such circumstances, Lin Feng was unable to escape even if he grew wings. Extremely swift and fierce sword qi emerged and bombarded the atmosphere. At that moment, a purple light shot high into the sky above Lin Feng's head, making him look like a ferocious warrior. What? He wants to fight? The members of the Luoxia sect laughed coldly and joked, he is a cultivator of the Lingqi layer. Even if he relies on external factors to increase his cultivation abilities, how could he resist our elders? Yes, he just wants to die. A gigantic qi emerged in the atmosphere. The cultivators of the Lingqi layer all moved back and only those of the Qianqi layer continued surrounding Lin Feng. They had all heard about that day when Lin Feng had fought against the Dream Pavilion and that he had killed 4 cultivators of the Qianqi layer. Even though they had only broken through to the first Qianqi layer, they had probably been careless when dealing with him. At that moment, all the elders were surrounding Lin Feng. How could he resist? You still want to kill him, does that mean that you don't believe me? Said Yun Shi in a quiet voice. Was it that they didn't believe her or that they chose to ignore her? They all knew the truth perfectly, but it was much easier for them to just kill Lin Feng and settle the matter. Yun Shi stood up and said to the elders, Elders, I swear that my 2 fellow disciples were killed by an evil man whom we met when we went into the hut. He also wanted to kill me, but at that moment, someone, whose name apparently was Bing He Tang, appeared, and then the man stopped paying attention to me. Then they both left. Wu Gang perfectly knows what happened, but he doesn't want to lose face. He wanted to find a scapegoat. He was planning to rape me and kill me, then blame the one in the bronze mask. Fortunately, Lin Feng appeared, but Wu Gang shamelessly captured me as a hostage and threatened Lin Feng, which is why Lin Feng didn't kill him. After that, all of you arrived. I would prefer death over living a lie. What a naive little girl. How foolish. All these people of the Luoxia sect were coldly staring at Yunxi. "Get lost!" shouted a powerful voice that filled everyone's ears. It made Yunxi's entire body shake. "If you try to prevent us from avenging our sect members, we will bury you here with them," shouted an incredibly aggressive voice which made Yunxi's heart pound faster. She had lost all hope. It seemed like everything she had done had been useless. "No problem, kill me too," said Yunxi. At that moment, a smile appeared on her face, a smile of agony. Suddenly, a deadly chi emerged from her body. Everybody was surprised. "It doesn't look good," cried Lin Feng in alarm. His body flickered and he appeared behind Yunxi's body. It was already too late though. Yunxi groaned, she slammed the deadly chi into her chest and blood gushed from her mouth. A flower, which had yet to blossom, had already withered. Lin Feng caught Yunxi's body and his face turned deathly pale. Yunxi killed herself, surprisingly, she took her own life. How foolish, what a naive young girl. She was so young, she was only 17 years old. She was supposed to be experiencing the most beautiful years of her life. However, because she had discovered how bitter reality really was, she couldn't stand it and killed herself. It shouldn't have ended that way. The members of the Luoxia sect were astonished. Yunxi's suicide was unexpected. However, they were only surprised for a few seconds and cold expressions quickly reappeared on their faces again. In their opinion, her death was insignificant. She had died, so what? Yunxi's body softly collapsed into Lin Feng's chest. Her head was raised. Blood was flowing out of her little mouth. Her naive young eyes were looking at Lin Feng and she was still smiling. "I'm sorry. I didn't have the chance to fight for you. All of this happened because of me." Lin Feng was wiping the blood from her mouth with the greatest care. He was unceasingly shaking his head. When Lin Feng looked at her deathly pale smile, he could see that she was very beautiful and soft-hearted. Unfortunately, the flower had chosen to wither over blossoming into a cruel world. "I know that it is not because they don't believe me, it is that they disdain my words. I couldn't convince them. Therefore, death was the only solution." Yunxi's voice gradually lost in intensity. Lin Feng raised his head and felt like he was going to cry. He wasn't like Yunxi, he wasn't naive. He was convinced that his efforts would bring him good luck. However, he had already experienced the bitterness of the cruelty of people in his past life. "Lin Feng, I'm already a young woman and I have no one to love. Please grant me my first kiss," said Yunxi suddenly with a shy smile. Immediately after, she added, "Just consider this as the last wish of a fellow cultivator." "All right," said Lin Feng while solemnly nodding. How could he refuse the last request of such a young and naive girl? He slightly lowered his head and wiped away the blood as he softly kissed her warm lips. She looked beautiful and resplendent. So that's what it feels like to kiss someone. Yunxi's face slightly turned red. Immediately after, her beautiful naive eyes slowly closed. When Lin Feng saw her close her eyes, he raised his head while looking to the sky to stop his tears and took a deep agonizing breath. "Kill! Kill! Kill! Kill!" Lin Feng was shouting these words, his voice was extremely loud and filled with fury. In the air, 3 silhouettes appeared and rushed towards him. An incredibly strong and powerful ice-cold chi suddenly emerged in the atmosphere enveloping everybody. The powerful chi made the ground vibrate. That purple light was Lin Feng's signal for Mr. Hua, Mr. Qi, as well as Meng Cheng. They had all seen the purple light and rushed to that location, it was just that they hadn't shown themselves until now. When the people of the Luoxia sect sensed the terrifying energies, their hearts started pounding. Chapter 300, The Nightmare of the Luoxia Sect. What a terrifying chi! The people of the Luoxia sect were looking at the 3 people, who had just landed next to Lin Feng, which made them shake from head to toe. They had heard that 2 strong cultivators stood on Lin Feng's side. There was the old man Mr. Hua and a delicate-looking girl whose face was covered with a fine veil. But at that moment, there was one more person, Mr. Qi, and besides, Mr. Qi's chi was terrifying. Mr. Qi, Mr. Hua, kill them, all of them. Lin Feng's chi was getting even more brutal. Mr. Qi and Mr. Hua slightly nodded. Their terrifying chi was getting more and more powerful, especially the chi from Mr. Qi. The strength of the chi that he was releasing already exceeded that of the 3rd Xian Qi layer. 4th Xian Qi layer. The elders of the Luoxia sect were suddenly feeling uneasy. They were furious. On Lin Feng's side, there was another powerful cultivator. He was even stronger than Mr. Hua and the girl. He had broken through to the 4th Xian Qi layer. At the scale of the Xian Qi layer, one layer already constituted a huge difference. How foolish. Hideous facial expressions appeared on all these people's faces. They wanted to kill Lin Feng? At this moment, they were the ones in danger. Lin Feng. She still has 1 breath left in her body. I will give her a pill. A miracle could still happen, said Mr. Hua while putting a pill in Yunxi's mouth. Immediately after, the strength of the pure chi spread through her body and his finger pressed between her eyebrows. Lin Feng was stupefied. He could sense it. He was dumbstruck. Indeed, Yunxi still had a breath in her lungs. She was extremely weak. A moment ago, Lin Feng's heart had been filled with so much hatred and murderous intentions that he hadn't noticed it. Mr. Hua, said Lin Feng, whose eyes were filled with hope. A small light appeared between her eyebrows, it was pulsating. Then, Mr. Hua took his finger off her head and looked at Lin Feng. She will not die within the next 7 days, but the blood vessels are completely destroyed. She's severely injured. She will not live past 7 days. Lin Feng was dumbstruck and hastily replied, "Is there no solution?" "There is one," said Mr. Hua. He then remained silent for a moment and said, while frowning, "But only monstrously powerful pills can save her life." Pills lights were flashing in Lin Feng's eyes. Immediately after, he handed Yinxi over to Meng Qing and said, "Meng Qing, take care of her." Meng Qing looked at Lin Feng, she was surprised, but immediately after she nodded and took Yinxi in her arms. After that Lin Feng handed Yinxi over to Meng Qing, he turned around and stared at Wu Gang. His terrifying deadly qi turned into a sword which immediately rushed towards Wu Gang. Wu Gang couldn't help but move backwards, his face turned deathly pale. He was terrified of Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked frightening. His deadly qi was monstrous in power. "If I don't kill you, it means that justice doesn't exist," said Lin Feng as his voice filled with killing intent. He then said, "Mr. Qi, Mr. Hua, kill them all. Sorry for the trouble. It's been a while since I last fought. I still haven't enjoyed a good fight since I broke through to the 4th Xian Qi layer," said Mr. Qi while smiling. His silhouette flickered and in a flash he disappeared. Ah, in a flash, a horrible shriek spread in the atmosphere. Mr. Qi's palm immediately crashed into an elder's body. Immediately, that elder's chest started burning and a black mark appeared. That elder was at the 1st Xian Qi layer. He had just died. The difference between a cultivator of the 1st Xian Qi layer and the 4th Xian Qi layer was enormous. There was a difference of 3 layers. It was a gigantic gap. The strength between layers was even more vast than the Ling Qi layer. In a flash, the elder was killed. The elders of the Luoxia sect were all incomparably pale. They were all cultivators of the Xian Qi layer, they were all treasures in their sect, but at that moment, they could easily get killed at any moment. Besides, there was one thing that scared them. A moment ago, Mr. Qi had killed a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer in one strike. Well, what about them? A sensation of danger invaded their hearts. Maybe they made a mistake on that day. "Everybody, act together and defeat the enemies," said the leader of the elders, who was the one at the 3rd Xian Qi layer. But when he finished talking, a terrifying fireball appeared. Mr. Hua was attacking him. "Old friend, I'll keep this one under control, you kill the others. I will see how much time you need," said Mr. Hua. He was going to fight against the cultivator of the 3rd Xian Qi layer. The other ones had only broken through to the 1st and 2nd Xian Qi layer. Mr. Qi would easily kill them all. He wouldn't need much time to deal with them. "All right." Mr. Qi nodded and took a huge step. An insanely violent pure qi started spinning around his body which made everybody's heartbeat accelerate. What a monstrous ability. Mr. Hua was going to take care of the elder at the 3rd Xian Qi layer, so how would the others resist Mr. Qi without him? They had absolutely no hope. They would never be able to resist the power without the support of a stronger cultivator. At that moment, Mr. Qi was moving towards a cultivator of the 1st Xian Qi layer. That person didn't even try to release his qi, he immediately tried to run away. However, how could a cultivator at the 1st Xian Qi layer be faster than one of the 4th Xian Qi layer? In a flash, a monstrous force descended from the sky. He abruptly turned his head around and immediately saw a brutal attack crash into him. Another cultivator of the Xian Qi layer had just died. Dread was invading their hearts at that moment. The cultivator of the 4th Xian Qi layer was way too terrifying. Their hearts were filled with regret. They regretted siding with Wu Gang and trying to kill Lin Feng, while letting Yinxi die. Now, not only would they not have the power to kill Lin Feng, but instead Lin Feng was repaying their hostility several times over. Wu Gang, bastard, cursed the members of the Luoxia sect at that moment. That bastard had provoked Lin Feng and the consequences would be terrifying, they could all possibly die today because of it. At that moment, a purple light was furiously circling Lin Feng's body. At the same time, a terrifying sword energy rose into the air and then rushed towards Wu Gang. Wu Gang's heart was pounding violently. Lin Feng was terrifying, he looked like a death god. In a flash the purple energy wrapped around a person in front of Wu Gang. The purple energy lifted the person into the air. His legs were frenetically moving above the ground but he was unable to escape. Lin Feng's hand was rushing through the air. The sword energy burst forth and a blood mark appeared between that person's eyebrows. It looked like a sword had pierced through his head. Run, run. The other disciples were panic-stricken, they didn't want to fight at all. The elders at the Xian Qi layer were being slaughtered by Mr. Qi. Besides, none of the disciples could fight against Lin Feng. If they couldn't escape, the only possibility was to die. It was a dead end for them. Escape? Lin Feng's deadly qi became even more violent. His mouth looked distorted for a moment and then several hundred purple snakes appeared, which threw themselves at the escaping enemies, wrapping their bodies around the escaping disciples. At that moment, in the air, a few silhouettes were violently struggling. Everybody will die. Lin Feng's voice sounded ice-cold to the extent that it was piercing through to the bones. He raised both his hands high up into the air and a sword appeared, it was made of pure qi. It looked like the sword of a war god. That sword was filled with deadly qi, sword qi, and battle energy. Besides, it was gigantic. Lin Feng slowly rose into the air. His sword was dazzling and it suddenly shot through the air like a meteor. The entire atmosphere was consumed by a rain of blood as the sword slashed down. One sword made of chi was enough to kill all of them. There wasn't a single disciple left alive. Battle noises were unceasingly spreading through the atmosphere. Wu Gang was looking at the corpses unceasingly falling onto the ground. His heart was violently pounding, and it was getting worse each time a new corpse hit the floor. Everybody had died. Only one person was left, Lin Feng. He had meticulously killed everybody. Wu Gang raised his head and looked at Lin Feng's face. It was filled with killing intent. Fear invaded Wu Gang's entire soul. He was hopeless and terrified. "Don't kill me. I know that I was wrong," said Wu Gang while frantically shaking his hand. He finally regretted that he tried to put the blame on Lin Feng. He had invited the fury of a god of death. The arrogance had disappeared from his face. He also didn't have his evil smile anymore. Instead, there was only fear on his face. Everybody had died. All the elders of the Xian Qi layer had died. Those of the Ling Qi layer had all been slaughtered under Lin Feng's sword made of qi. "You know that you are wrong?" said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. "Was admitting that he was at fault enough? Didn't you say that I attacked you by surprise? Now, I will give you the chance to attack me," said Lin Feng sounding cold and detached. After seeing such a slaughter, how could Wu Gang still dare to fight? His body flickered and he immediately tried to escape. After that, when Wu Gang's body was in mid-air, a purple snake immediately wrapped around him and brought him back. He appeared in front of Lin Feng, who raised his head and saw Wu Gang, tied up. "You want to run away?" said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. He raised his sword, a horrible shriek spread through the air. Wu Gang's legs were both cut off to stop him running away.